Welcome back, everyone. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel, and today I wanted to continue on my investigation into a machine that I won at an auction. This was an online auction, but the location of the auction was within driving distance because, as I've mentioned to you all, I do not order machines to be shipped to me. I haven't done that in a very long time, and I don't ship out machines because of the very high probability that a machine will be damaged, and it's just not worth it to me. Some of you have had better experiences, I know. Now, when I first got this machine, I'm trying to remember if I actually made a video on it or not. But the last video, I was talking to you all and asking you, did I pay too much? Because I paid $103.96, or basically $104 Canadian for this, and that included the taxes and the buyer's premium. They charge buyers, I don't know, it's like a extra profit for whatever reason. That's what they call it. Now, this, of course, being a Singer 301, these machines have a following. They are basically one of several Singer vintage sewing machines that are straight stitchers and have some of the most incredible straight stitch consistency and quality you'll ever see. But again, the question was, did I pay too much? So we're going to take a little bit closer, in-depth look at the machine that I won. Okay, I'm going to pull it out here, and I am then going to remove the foot pedal, which is designed to come up. And I don't know how long it's been since this foot pedal was taken out. There it comes. Just hasn't been moved in a while. So you can imagine how long it might have been sitting there. What else do we got here? Well, I see there's a button. It looks to be stuck on there. I don't know why anyone would glue a button there. Maybe they had a reason to do so. I don't know if in fact it's glued. And we even have some Singer needles. They were just sitting there in the back. And these are, says imported by the Singer Company. They were imported into Canada. Wow. Okay, so these needles here were made in Germany. Now, there may be some brands of needles that are still made in Germany. If they are, they're probably industrial needles, because the Schmetz brand, which I believe is German, I'm pretty sure they're German. They are not made in Germany, to my knowledge. And Singer needles are certainly not made in Germany or England or the U.S. or Canada. They're all made in somewhere in Asia. But so I know that this Singer package is newer than the machine. This does not look like 1950s packaging, but it's not new. What is this, 60s, maybe 70s, when they were making, Singer was getting its needles from Germany. And you can see here, I still have 3 needles left. What are they? It says, well, they were made in Germany. They may be in a European numbering system, so I'll have to check that out. See what it's how do I translate that into North American needle sizing? I don't know. I'll have to look at that. If you guys know, tell me what a 90 is. It's color coded like the Singer needles very often were, yeah, for part of their history anyway. Okay, now I mentioned to you all in the last video that I did check when I went to pick this machine up. I did check to make sure it had its bobbin case, because without it, it would be pretty useless. So now I want to check out the bobbin case, because it has the bobbin case. Now I got to make sure it's okay. Don't see a little bit of dust down here. Not bad, honestly. So I'm going to pull on the little lever and very gently pull. Came right out. Has a bobbin that is completely full of thread. And remember, as I've told all of you, when you have a bobbin, the same principle that I've talked to you about your tension assemblies. whenever you have thread and you're going to remove thread from something, if it's from a machine, always you cut your thread above before it gets to the assembly. You cut the thread there and then you pull it in the same direction you thread the machine. You don't want to pull it backward. The same thing applies to bobbin cases of any kind, and we certainly don't want to damage this one because they are really expensive to replace. So let me get my scissors. And it's just a good reminder. So if you have, let's bring this up where you guys can see it. So I have my bobbin case, right? So I'm going to cut my thread, somewhere between the bobbin and the bobbin case. Now here's, well actually this doesn't even look like it's threaded very much at all. Okay, so this is the top, right? Because the lever points to the left on the 301 and featherweight bobbin case. So you can see here where the thread would be coming out, right? So I'm going to pull in the same direction that the bobbin was threaded. Now, what am I checking for? I'm looking at my bobbin case. Don't see any damage. Don't see much of anything. A little crud down in there that should be cleaned out, but that's normal. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the case, but we do want to. We'll get around to that. But this little lever here, which I could feel tension on when I remove the bobbin case, and if I gently pick up on it, I'll pull it up here close. I don't know if it'll come up on the mic. There's a little clicking sound. That's a happy sound. That's what I want to hear because there's a spring. Bobbin cases have springs in them, and you want it to be healthy. And so far, now I'm looking at this, and I don't know. I see a screw, and I'm trying to remember. Do you guys remember? I'm going to have to go back and look at my other 301 or featherweight bobbin cases. I thought there were two small screws that you would see right up here in the top, and right now I only see one. This one is in there. I don't want to lose those. We'll have to see. I'll know depending on how it sews, right? Like, where would you get one of those? So again, things get loose over time. They can go get lost. I just don't remember if the featherweight / 301 bobbin case, I think it should have that other screw there. That's just my gut reaction to that. Well, we'll find out, won't we? Did I overpay? That was the question I asked. Now, so pretend this is your machine. Maybe you made, you were excited. It's like, oh, it's a 301. I've heard so much about them, and you've gone online to get one ordered. Now, one thing I can do before I take my machine anywhere else, I can certainly see if maybe the screw that was in that bobbin case, could it have fallen out in the machine somewhere? Could it have fallen and maybe gotten down into, say, underneath where there's a pad? Always be mindful that before, sometimes things are not completely lost. They're just not where they should be. And so before I go to vacuum out my carry case, my trapezoidal case, I'm going to be inspecting it with a flashlight. Make sure that none of these things that might be missing are here somewhere. And I don't want to be close to having them and then lose them, right? Okay, so we're going to do a little more inspection here. I'm going to take the machine, and for the moment, I'm going to put the case, just going to put it up out of the way for the moment. My latches are working. Again, I'll inspect just in case that little screw. It's a pretty slight chance, but you never know if the screw is there. If not, I may have to go finding one online. So before we look at the machine, let's look at I'm not ready to open it up yet, right? So I'm going to look at the foot pedal. This, of course, is the Singer button style, we call them, foot pedals. This was the the classic Singer foot pedal for a long time, many decades. And this one is in dark brown. If they are not black, they will often be in anywhere from dark brown, there's a medium brown, there's a tan, um, and they came, I don't know if they may have come in white and maybe light blue as you get into the 60s, but they were made for a long time. I don't see any cracks in the plastic. They can, I don't see that often, but just giving a cursory look here, I have this nice cord strain relief, which is nice to see. The rubber feet, they may be original, but they're not bad. I don't see any cracks here. Now, remember that if you take one of these and you sort of shake it, I don't hear anything, but that doesn't mean it's not, it's been inspected yet for damage, but I like that I'm not hearing any kind of porcelain rattling around. Now, this button is, again, I'll be opening up the foot pedal to inspect it and clean it. But sometimes this little button, right, sometimes it'll rattle a bit, and that's sometimes just because there's space there for it to rattle. It doesn't mean it's broken. So if you hear a rattling, it could be this, but if you hold this still and you hear a rattling, you definitely, like I say, I like to inspect all the pedals that I get just to be careful. And of course, when I go around, I can follow with my fingers and thumb, feeling for any damage to the cord. You won't always be able to tell if a cord is dry rotted. Sometimes you can tell by taking it and putting it between your thumb and your fingers, basically surrounding the whole cord to feel for any damage. When I say damage, I mean sometimes cords get pinched or cut, or some animals chewed on them. You never know. This, of course, is the on the 301. You actually have two cords. You have over there. You have your foot pedal, which has its cord, and it has its own plug, that beautiful brass prongs there, and that plugs into one of the one space on the side of the machine, and then you have a separate plug. This is, of course, the classic Singer 3-prong plug, and I'm also going to do the same thing with the cord. I'm just feeling for any damage, right? Just sort of taking it all the way to it's fairly long, nice length here, and I'm just going to go along and I'm just feeling for any kind of damage. Sometimes you can feel for damage before you can actually see it. Again, I have not plugged this in, and I don't plug things in until I inspect cords. Now, that was just feeling for damage. If I want to see if the cord is dry rotted or just really too tired to use, or if the insulation has been compromised due to age, right now I don't see it. Now, you don't have to you don't want to crush this flat. You don't have to. Just bending a curve just like this, like an arch, that typically will show you if your cord is damaged. Now, this is you can see the cord has two wires, and each wire has its own jacket. You have the cord covering. Earlier Singer cords would have something that was kind of like this, but then it was wrapped with another piece, and they were often black. Those cords are harder sometimes to tell, but again, even the kind of inspection I'm giving this, it's not foolproof, but it can certainly help you decide if you need a new cord or not. Now, this is interesting because I have seen Singer plugs like this, they're very common, and I've had Singer 301s where this plug was Bakelite, but this one is actually sealed. This one was made with some sort of rubber or some sort of rubber plastic mix. Now, in here there's a metal sleeve that the prongs of the machine, when you go to plug in when you plug your cord into the terminal here, you have these brass ends. And if you look, I don't know if you can see this, if I zoom in, you may be able to tell that not only does the plug have some green sort of verdigris tarnish. Oops. See if we can get it all in the view there. Look at look at the prongs here. They also have a little green tarnish. What that basically means is um, this plug may have been put into the machine and left there for decades. Who knows? Remember how old this is? 1951-ish, 52. So it's been around a while. Okay. What else do we need to inspect to see if I paid too much or if I got a good deal? Part of this is subjective. How badly do I need a 301? How badly do you need a 301? Maybe you want it because you learned to sew on them, or you knew someone who learned to sew on them. It was in your family. Who knows? It could have been your grandmother's or your mom's or what have you. Now, I already know, and this didn't surprise me. I could see it as soon as I opened up the case. This tire, it's so weird. You know, sometimes you'll get a bobbin tire that is in great shape, and then other times you won't. In fact, I have one to show you, one that did survive and did not become unstable like this thing. It's very powdery, so the rubber has basically disintegrated on the outside, and if I look at that, see if I bend it, you can see it's literally you know, the rubber compound has reached the end of its life, and it will not be making a good bobbin tire for any machine. But just to let you know, I have had bobbin tires like this one. This one is also of the same era, the same vintage. It says Singer on it. It's brown. Sometimes you would see beige rubber winder. This is the bobbin winder tire. And then sometimes you would see brown. Now this one is in pretty good shape. In fact, I can't really see, I actually cannot see any crazing or cracks. Now this is a very old bobbin tire. If you have one, you know, and you don't see any cracking and it has a good rubbery feel to it, make sure it's clean. You can certainly continue to use it. Most of your replacement bobbin tires that you find, they still make them in different sizes. They typically come in black. In fact, this is another old one. This one says Singer on it as well. And it's really always sort of mystified me. Now this one here has some cracking. You guys see that when I stretch it? You can see some degradation. Get the camera to focus there. You'll see some cracks. So a lot of what may determine whether a bobbin tire survives or not, or just totally crumbles away, part of this has to do with the conditions in which the machine is stored. You know, rubber, plastics, cord materials, rubber tires, they don't survive very well in heat, very hot storage conditions. So if, you know, it's possible this machine may have been, the one I've got now, this 301, may have been stored in an attic or a hot shed, who knows. So that could explain this, or it could be something else. It could have been exposed to something in the atmosphere that accelerated. All rubber parts have a lifespan. It's not like we can keep them indefinitely. Right now, because I have a spare rubber tire, and because this brown one has no cracks, who knows? I'll be able to actually have the original color and be able to use it. So as long as if you have an older rubber winder tire and you don't see any cracks or breaking down of the rubber, there's no problem with using it. You can use it. Who knows how long it will last, but just be aware that if it stops to function, or if it's really bad, really powdery like this one, you definitely want to replace it, because you don't want that powder getting in the machine, and the tire's not going to perform its function, which is to have friction to get your bobbin get your bobbin wound. That's the whole point of the bobbin winder. All right. So when I pull here, I feel nice tension on the spring. That's a good sign. This is moving. The bobbin winding shaft is moving there. one thing to remind all of you when you're inspecting your machine, lift up your presser bar so that you can turn your hand wheel. And I'm turning my hand wheel. You see the needle coming up and down. Seems to be moving fairly smoothly. Again, that doesn't mean that I should just plug this machine in and see how it sews. No, I'm not going to do that. No. Now, I've mentioned this before to you all that these 301 trapezoid cases, they have, and I showed you this when I took the foot pedal out, they have that bracket which is very convenient to hold the foot pedal. But if the original owner or you, if you're not careful, when you go to put your machine back in, you've got to have it really low and flat, because if you don't, it gets scraped. Now, normally, if someone puts the machine in as it was intended to be when it was new, you would typically have these scrapes like this here. You guys see the paint loss, and there's another one here. It's pretty bad, and it's concentrated there, and the reason for that is that the machine's edge, let's give you guys a little bit close up. Yeah, the machine's edge basically got scraped by the bracket that holds the foot pedal, and it's very sharp. And if the machine had been put in more carefully, or if Singer had not designed the bracket with a sharp edge, this would not have happened. So, am I going to touch it up? I have a series of paint repair videos where sometimes I do touch up, but I don't touch up all of my machines. It really depends. It's very sort of subjective as to whether one should or should not. Okay, we want to make sure we have. What else do you want to do? You guys remember when you're inspecting a machine? Hopefully you can do this before you buy the machine, but definitely, after you gotta know what you got. So what do we have? We have a thread guide down here that's used for winding a bobbin. We have the spool pin down here for bobbin winding as well. We have I can feel the piece of glass here, so I know that. I don't know if the light works. Haven't plugged it in yet, but switch works. We have our. Before we get down the detention assembly, let's look here. What do we need to see? We need to see there's a spool pin underneath this old spool of thread, and it seems fine. Then we're gonna have our first thread guide here. The thread comes down. We want this here. We want that thread guide. Then we're going to come down, and we will see. Have not really inspected it yet, but we have tension disc. We need obviously 2 tension discs where the thread's going to come and live as it gets tension adjusted on it as it goes. And as you come around, what else are we looking for? We see this thread guide. We see this one. We have obviously our take-up arm. But look right here, right? We really want to make sure that we see a check spring, and I'm just going to gently push up against it, and it has a little bounce. Not as much bounce as I'd like to see there. Well, it's got some bounce, guys, but I'm going to need to be disassembling this and inspecting. Keep in mind that sometimes you get a machine and you think it looks okay, but someone has in fact gone in and tried to fix something or adjust something, and either they put it back together backwards or they left out a part. You just never know. Okay, so again, I know I've got that thread guide. We have one here. There's one here. Change our perspective a little bit there. You guys a little bit more. Give you guys a little bit more. Sorry about that. Give you guys a little more focus here. That was my goal, instead of the slapstick moment you saw there. Okay, so a little pointer. Point with this. So here's a thread guide right here. You should also see one here, and this one is loose. Hopefully it has. Yes, I see the little screw there that's supposed to tighten it. That screw is right there. So we'll have to make sure that doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so we got that, and then there's one more. You got one more right here. And then once you get your thread in that thread guide, Of course, remember the 301 is one of several Singer models that instead of threading from the left to the right, which is true of most vintage machines, um, and true of many Singers, but in the 301, it actually threads from the right to the left, right? So whoever was using this machine did have the needle incorrectly because I can feel the groove here on the right, and that's where it should be. My foot seems fine. The screw is a little loose. We have our plate. Plate seems okay. So let's see. What do you think? What do you guys think? Did I buy this because I have a bias to the 301? Is it because of the color scheme? I've already done at least a second one. Of course, the first machine I ever restored was a 301. I think my biggest concern, you guys tell me what you think. My biggest concern is this. When I saw that I had a bobbin case, I said, okay, good, I've got the bobbin case. Didn't know I was going to have a screw loose, a screw missing. So we'll see. Maybe it will work without it. Maybe it will work without this screw. Maybe I can find, again, maybe I can find a replacement. I'm not sure where I'll find it. But if I could find a screw for any bobbin case, it would be a Singer, because Singer was great about not changing their parts just for the heck of it. They kept things in production a long time. What did I forget anything? Anything I forgot to look for? What about this? Right? So my stitch length regulator is moving, and I can see with my down here, I don't know if it picks up for you, but when I move my regulator, I can see some movement in my feed dogs there. So